Okay, so this project is on classroom management. This is an introduction to classroom management and what it entails. What is classroom management? Classroom management refers to a variety of techniques and skills that teachers might use to keep their students organized, focused, attentive, on task, and academically productive during class. This might include strategies that are implemented effectively that minimize the behaviors that hinder learning for both individual students and the class as a whole. This enables teachers to teach the content that they need to their students. Effective teachers tend to display strong classroom management skills, while inexperienced or less effective teachers tend to have a disorderly classroom filled with students who are not working or paying attention. Classroom management keeps the class organized and students' attention on the material being taught. This is my thesis statement. Managing the classroom effectively is one of many jobs that teachers must address on an everyday basis. This involves self-discipline, positive behavioral support, and sometimes contingency contract systems. Classroom management is a big concern for new teachers. Often they feel intimidated, like they're not sure how to control their students so that they can actually teach the content, which is already a new thing for them. Several key points to classroom management. 1. Know what you want and what you don't. This makes sure that students understand what they are to do and what they aren't allowed to do. 2. Show and tell your students what you want. If you don't give examples and actually show your students what you want, they might be confused about what they're supposed to do. 3. When you get what you want, acknowledge, not praise it. Letting students know that they did the right thing reminds them that in the future, this is what they need to be doing. 4. When you get something else, act quickly and appropriately. Acting quickly and appropriately allows the students to grasp the understanding they aren't allowed to do what they are doing, or they should do it differently in the future. Qualities of good classroom managers. They have a set of routines and procedures that are taught to the students. They make the most of the classroom space to facilitate easy teacher movement and proximity, as well as student transitions and movement. They begin each school year with a set of class guidelines or rules that they explicitly teach, monitor, and continue to enforce throughout the year, not just at the beginning of the year. They plan well, and this includes rules that are in place from the beginning and lesson plans throughout the year. They handle interruptions effectively and efficiently. This allows for less interruptions during class. They encourage and nurture a sense of community, respect, and personal relationships amongst and with their students. This makes sure that students understand that personalization is the key to the classroom, and it really helps students to stay focused and excited about learning. They have a plan that includes a set of corrective consequences for mild misbehavior. Having a set of consequences already ready allows you to use any sort of punishment effectively when misbehavior occurs in the classroom. They have a range of options for dealing with discipline problems, and this includes sending a child to the office if necessary, but keeping mild consequences for mild misbehavior at hand allows the teacher to manage her classroom or his classroom effectively on their own. And they know when to bend the rules and when not to. This allows the teacher to stick by the rules, but if something happens and the rules need to be bent, he or she understands when to do so. Now for a literature review. Evidence has shown that effective classroom management can lead to higher student success and motivation. Let's take a look at literature supporting the importance of effective classroom management, and this includes recent studies. As far as student-teacher contingency contracts go, this is a common method used in the classroom management and is a key to student academic productivity. These are contracts that are implemented as an agreement between teacher and student. This may include behavioral or academic goals that are set. Here is an example of a classroom contract. It might include some behaviors that the teacher expects of the student, some assignments that need to be completed by a certain amount of time, or just anything that the teacher wants or expects from the student. The student and teacher then sign the contract, and this ensures that both are in agreement that this set of expectations need to be completed. This is a contingency contract. As far as what studies show about contingency contracts go, in a study conducted by observing the effects of 13 disadvantaged youth participating in such a contract, student productivity actually more than doubled after the contract was signed. So this shows that these contracts are effective at times and definitely motivate a student. This mutual agreement encourages students to stay focused through making distinct and achievable goals. By having these goals in writing and signing off on the goals, the student feels motivated and like he or she needs to complete what is listed. Students feel motivated to participate and stay focused on schoolwork when these contracts are signed. Classroom management versus bullying. Classroom management is a large component in student behavior, including bullying. The way that a teacher chooses to manage his or her classroom can have a positive effect in order to prevent bullying, or it might even go the opposite direction and encourage such behavior. So what do statistics show? As far as bullying goes, 29.9% of students were found to be involved in bullying dynamics. This includes 13% of that amount as bullies themselves, 10.6% as victims of bullies, and 6.3% as bully victims. That would be a combination of the two. These numbers indicate that bullying among students is a problem of serious concern in U.S. schools. Something that's quite surprising is teacher versus student bullying. Oftentimes, students try to belittle their teachers, which is actually a form of bullying. This can promote teachers to bully back in an aggressive manner. They may insult a child in front of the classroom. This is considered teacher bullying. So, ways that a teacher may use classroom management in a negative way in schools that negatively impacts bullying is the use of coercion and punishments to deal with inappropriate student behavior. This tends to have negative, hostile effects and creates a hostile environment for your students. Schools and classrooms that are authoritarian and are characterized by rigid, adult-centered authority tend to use more intimidation and punishment to get students to behave. This negatively affects bullying because it actually encourages such behavior in the students. Teaching that is of low quality or that does not reflect current knowledge regarding learning and classroom management, bullying, and teacher practices can increase the likelihood for bullying. It's important for teachers to stay up to date and understand current research and what may actually prevent bullying from occurring in the classroom. So how can classroom management prevent bullying? Firstly, it is critical for teachers to be able to identify social and relational bullying as well as the more overt and obvious forms of verbal and physical bullying. In a study, it was founded that pre-service teachers, which are teachers that have not quite started their teaching career, considered relational bullying to be less serious than other forms of bullying. Oftentimes, physical bullying is more obvious to the teacher, but it's important for he or she to recognize all forms because it can all be damaging to his or her students. So adopt the school's bullying prevention measures. This might include training, learning how to respond to violence, realignment of the school or classroom code of conduct, and behavior management systems. It's important for teachers to teach students social skills that reduce the likelihood of interpersonal conflict. This includes encouraging assignments that encourage positive communication between students as well as positive relationships amongst students and teachers alike. Effective instruction can improve achievement, learning, and behavior, which all help to prevent bullying in the classroom. Developing routines, procedures, and a set of consistent behaviors in the classroom that fit in with the learning activities in the classroom can help to prevent bullying from occurring. Studies show that bullying isn't as simple and is often a complicated problem as a result of home life, school and classroom social structure, and society alone. All of these factors add up to bullying, and it's up to teachers to do their best in their classroom managing skills to prevent bullying. Teacher burnout. Teacher burnout includes emotional exhaustion, reduced personal accomplishment, or their perceived personal accomplishment, and depersonalization in the classroom. This affects the relationship that a teacher has with his or her students, which definitely negatively affects what students learn and how they feel in the classroom. So what do studies show about teacher burnout versus classroom management? The more emotionally exhausted that teachers are, the poorer the performances will generally be. If a teacher has a poor performance in class teaching his or her lessons, then students aren't going to get as much out of the lessons. Several studies demonstrate that doubts about self-efficacy can in themselves trigger the burnout process. Teachers who consider themselves less competent in classroom management reported a higher level of burnout than colleagues who perceive themselves as being more confident in their classroom management skills. This tells us that teachers who are more efficient in classroom management feel more comfortable, feel more at ease, and aren't as likely to experience burnout, emotional exhaustion, and decreases in their confidence level in the classroom. It is very important for teachers to develop proper classroom management skills in order to prevent burnout and depersonalization in the teacher-student relationship. Personalization is key in the classroom, and this depersonalization that occurs as a result of low classroom management skills isn't necessary. So it's important for teachers to study up and really acknowledge and appreciate what classroom management does for their students. So what are some applications of classroom management in the classroom itself? Firstly, it's important to set in place routines and procedures. So set routines and procedures into place in the first weeks of the school year. Why is this? Well, it's because this is the key to a well-managed classroom. It reduces interruptions during academic instruction and helps the class flow smoothly. Some points to remember. Hand out a copy of routines and procedures to students on the first day of school, and make sure to go over it in class. Acknowledge any questions or concerns that students might have. This allows students to grasp a full and complete understanding of what the routines and procedures you are setting into place mean for that individual student. It's also a good idea, like these pictures show, to put a poster up of what the classroom rules are. This is a constant reminder for students throughout the day. Make sure you're consistent. Don't allow for exceptions sometimes and then not other times. The inconsistency may confuse your students and make him or her feel like they can break the rules at any time. Explain, model, and reinforce each and every routine and procedure. Making sure to explain the procedures, the routines, and what is expected. Make sure that students develop this routine in their mind so they're used to it, they understand it, and they feel like they're confident enough to do it on their own each and every day. The routines and procedures definitely help to increase consistency, which can often help with students who might have learning disabilities or any sort of disability in the classroom. So routines and procedures include everything that goes on in the classroom, but these are just some examples. Entering the classroom, beginning work, roll call, lunch count, announcements, tardies, absences, and makeup procedures. Getting out of your seat, assignments, snacks, water, restroom breaks, going to lunch, recess. All of these things are routines and procedures or steps that are included in the routine and procedures. Making sure that all of these things flow each day and are in a certain order, make sure that the students know what to expect next in their day so they don't get frustrated thinking, well, when am I going to be able to go to the bathroom? When am I going to be able to get up and move around? Making sure that the students know what comes next, make sure that they focus on what is at hand, which is very important in the classroom. Classroom rules. Make sure to keep it simple. Stick to 3 to 5 rules in the classroom. This makes sure that students grasp a full understanding and there's not a long, lengthy list of things they don't understand. Qualities rules should have. They should be specific, observable, measurable, stated in positive terms, and convey the expected behavior. Try to avoid rules like do not do this or do not do that. This makes sure that students view the rules in a positive light. Like, make sure you are in your seat unless the teacher says otherwise. Guidelines for writing class rules. They should be consistent with school rules and should not conflict with them. School rules should be in effect in the classroom. 2. They should be understandable. Rules should be stated so that students clearly understand what is meant. This means that the vocabulary used should be consistent with the student grade level or ability level. 3. They should be doable. Rules should be such that students are capable of following them and be within students' maturation level and mental and physical abilities. 4. The rules should be manageable. Class rules should be easily monitored and not require excessive classroom time to hold students accountable. This distracts the students from learning. Next, the rules should always be applicable. The rules shouldn't only take place part of the time. They should be consistent across various situations, and the rules should not vary or change. 6. They should be stated positively. This encourages the desired behavior. It can be difficult to state all rules positively, but most don'ts can be transformed into do's. Example, no gum can be stated as leave all gum at home. 7. The rules should be stated behaviorally. Start rules with a verb, statements that describe what students do instead of leave all gum at home or bring needed materials to class. This makes them easily understood and monitored when defined with action statements. Here's an example of a poster I found that might be helpful to hang in class. All of these rules apply to the terms that I previously stated. Managing inappropriate behavior in class. This is a key component of classroom management. So most inappropriate behavior can be managed by relatively simple procedures that prevent escalation and distraction in the classroom. Effective classroom managers, though, practice skills that minimize misbehavior. Monitor students carefully and frequently so that misbehavior is detected early before it involves many students or becomes a serious disruption. Making sure that you cut down on the time spent on these distractions gives the students that may be looking for attention less attention and might even help to manage this inappropriate behavior in the future. Act to stop inappropriate behavior so as not to interrupt the instructional activity or to call excessive attention to the students by practicing the following strategies. Firstly, the teacher might want to move close to the offending student, make eye contact, or give a nonverbal sign to stop the offensive behavior. This makes sure that you don't have to call the student out in class, but if it's not working, calling a student's name or giving a short verbal instruction to stop the behavior might be useful. Redirecting the student to appropriate behavior by stating what the student should be doing and citing the applicable procedure or rule reminds the student what he or she should be doing and displays what they could be doing instead of the inappropriate behavior. Here's some useful tools that I found. This chart, How Am I Doing Today, allows the teacher to display behavior to the class, which might actually encourage the student to perform better in class. By switching the cards from green to yellow or red signals the level of misbehavior going on with that particular student. By By allowing the whole class to see the misbehavior on the chart, students might be encouraged to act more appropriately. Behavior is your choice. Choose carefully. This chart is similar in style, and also if you keep a track of each student's behavior each day like this, it allows you to let parents know when there might be a problem, and you can keep track of which days a student is misbehaving, how many days of the week, and if maybe further steps need to be made to keep the student on track. When there is misbehavior, consequences are often needed, but using them appropriately is just part of good classroom management. Positive consequences are intrinsic student satisfaction, resulting from success, accomplishment, good grades, social approval, and recognition. Students must be aware of the connection between tasks and grades. This allows the student to make necessary changes. Frequent use of punishment is associated with poor classroom management and should be avoided. It's more important to prevent the behavior that is causing consequences to occur. Milder punishments are often as effective as more intense punishments. Misbehavior will reoccur less often if a student makes the commitment to make changes. This is where contingency contracts might actually be very useful. This chart on the right-hand side is a negative consequence chart for an elementary school. Having one of these charts in the classroom might be helpful because it reminds students of, if they continue to act inappropriately, what it might include, what the consequences might be. Anything from silent lunch, being sent to the office, or parent contact. More serious disruptive behaviors such as fighting, continuous interruption of lessons, possession of drugs, and stealing require direct action according to school board rule. These sorts of behaviors aren't applicable to classroom management and really need to be handled by the school itself. This is a useful chart and in the classroom for consequences. If you do, and if you don't. This is a reminder for students of actions they might be displaying and what the consequences might be if you do follow the rules and if you don't. Positive behavior support. This is a comprehensive, research-based, proactive approach to behavioral support that aims to produce comprehensive change for students exhibiting challenging behavior. So the elements of positive behavioral support involve identifying the reason of challenging behavior. This is important because the reason behind the challenging behavior is what is starting the challenging behavior in the first place. This might be beneficial for preventing such behavior in the future. Teaching appropriate responses that serve the same purpose as the challenging behavior as an alternative is useful in preventing challenging behavior from arising. Consistently rewarding positive behaviors and diminishing the rewards for challenging behavior is important with positive behavioral support. This motivates the student to practice positive behaviors and reminds students that the negative, challenging behaviors they are exhibiting are not right. Minimizing the psychological, environmental, and curricular elements that trigger challenging behavior is also important in preventing such behavior from occurring. Positive behavior interventions and supports. So this is a multi-tiered intervention framework that addresses the continuum of behavior. If the negative behaviors continue, an intervention might be necessary. This could be based on an individual student or the school as a whole. Universal interventions are school-wide and apply to all students. School staff and teachers will work together to help address behavior and conduct needs in an universal intervention. Nextly, there are secondary tier interventions. These interventions are intended for those students who need more support than is provided by universal interventions. Examples may include behavioral skills support programs. This includes goal setting and assessment to intervention link, function-based skill instruction, and mentorship. Finally, there are tertiary tier interventions. These interventions include a small number of students or just individual students who are in need of comprehensive behavior intervention planning to address the complex array of behaviors that are contributing to the occurrence of the behavior problem. These students may receive a combination of interventions that emphasize, prevent, and help the student to reduce behaviors that are affecting everyone else. Prevention, instruction, reinforcement, and effective redirection of problem behavior are all needed in tertiary tier interventions. Some examples of this type of intervention might be functional behavioral assessments, functional analysis, behavioral intervention plans, wraparound programs or services, alternatives to suspension or expulsion, and more. Self-discipline. Self-discipline is built on the basis that students can be trusted to assess and change their actions so their behaviors are beneficial and appropriate to everyone. Self-discipline helps promote responsibility within individual students. This helps children to develop self-control and self-discipline methods through support and explanation of expectations. This promotes healthy, positive, respectful, kind, and healthy student-teacher and student-student interactions. This helps ensure that students see rules in a positive light, even if they don't always want to or choose to follow them. Here are two activities that help build student responsibility and self-management in classrooms. These are activities that a teacher might implement throughout the year and just creates positive relationships between their students. Activity 1 is called 3 Truths and 1 Lie. This activity is fairly simple, but students will use the materials listed to create index cards with 3 truths written down about the student and 1 lie. The lie is just a made-up fact. Students would then swap cards with the students beside them, and the students would try to guess which are the facts and which are the lies. This helps encourage personalization, and it helps the students get to know one another on a personal level. All of this helps with self-management and actually helps prevent bullying as well. The second activity is called compliments. This activity is created to create a positive environment and to boost self-esteem. Seat the students in a circle, invite them to think of a time when someone said something complimentary to them that made an impression and made them feel good. Ask them to take turns and to share their examples or to volunteer. Afterwards, students will take turns giving and receiving compliments from one another. This activity is purely positive, creates a positive environment, and again, helps students get to know each other and introduces them to the rest of the class. These activities should be done throughout the year to help continuously create a positive environment. Here are a few more tips on contingency contracts. Remember, the terms of the contract must be made clear. Ambiguity can cause disagreements in the future. The contract must be honest. An honest contract is one that is carried out immediately and carried out according to the terms listed. The contract needs to be positive. No negativity should be listed. Moving on to the conclusions of classroom management. Going back to self-discipline, there are pros and cons to this. Pros include students building skills for managing behavior and actions that will be useful in the future. This creates a positive learning environment, less disruptions during academic activities, and students get in less trouble that will result in disturbance of learning. Cons, there aren't that many, but building skills needed for self-discipline does take time, and this also requires the effort of both the teacher and the student. The student has to cooperate. So it can be difficult to obtain self-discipline because the student must be willing to try and participate as well. Positive behavioral support. Pros of positive behavioral support include the research that has been conducted over the past 15 years has shown that PBS is effective in promoting positive behavior in students and schools. Studies show there are reductions in office discipline referrals of 20 to 60% after PBS. PBS can lead to dramatic improvements that have long-term effects on the lifestyle, functional, communication skills, and problem behavior in individuals with disabilities. PBS and the research conducted about it led to 90% reduction in problem behavior in over half of the studies. The problem behavior stopped completely in over 26% of the studies. So what are the cons of positive behavioral support? Sometimes PBS distracts from conducting functional behavior assessments before development of significant behavior interventions. So at times the focus is solely on the punishment and the exclusion, but it really should be on what is causing the behavior in the first place. Next, staff may lack the training necessary to implement unproven strategies. Coordination may be lacking, and prevention and early access to behavioral support may be absent. Contingency contract systems. What are the pros and cons of these? The pros, this allows teachers to target each individual student with his or her specific needs, or a total group. A whole classroom could sign the same contract. It creates academic motivation and success in students. Studies do show that student productivity increases as a result of implementing a contract system. And lastly, another pro is it keeps expectations organized. What are the cons? Students must hold their word in providing the reward or implementing the punishment for not following the terms in the contract. These contract systems don't necessarily build on student intrinsic motivation if a reward is at stake. These contract systems may damage a child's self-esteem if the goal isn't reached and the student pressures themselves to complete what is listed on the contract. And lastly, classroom management itself. What are the pros and cons? Honestly, there are no cons. Classroom management is completely necessary to teaching students at all. But the pros: it helps keep a class in order, prevents distractions and interruptions in the learning process, gives the teacher respect from his or her students, obviously allows the teacher to teach the content, and helps control behavioral problems in the classroom. So that is all. Thank you for watching.